Heat up your frozen dinners, grab your TV tray, and settle in for another episode of the Plus Platoon, your podcast for all things Disney Plus, brought to you by Disney Plus fans. Watch along with us every week as we cover all the new, the old, the good, and the bad on Disney Plus. So put down that remote, don't touch that dial, and welcome your fabulous Plus Platoon host.
Hey everyone, welcome to the Plus Platoon. We're a Disney Plus fan podcast that gives honest, spoiler-filled reviews of movies and shows on Disney Plus. We'll look at new releases, coming attractions, and we'll even go back into the vault to revisit some of the classic Disney that's on the platform. Make sure you're subscribed and you will never miss a moment. I'm going to bring in Pete right now. Pete, glad to have you with us this week.
Hey, Derek. I know there's no Kate, so I should be like, hey, but I don't know if people can see it if you're watching this on YouTube. I have a skeleton dance shirt. I don't think we're covering that because we covered that last October with a bunch of shorts, and I think that's the one we're not going to cover, but in honor of the newly restored shorts skeleton dance shirt.
Very good. And we've also got my fellow Donald Nut, Steve. Steve.
Hey, everyone. Yes, Donald's number one.
Donald is number one. Donald gets the short end of the stick and is completely underrepresented. It's speciesism.
Yes.
So, guys, if you have not already, please like, subscribe, share. That way you'll never miss any of our episodes. And we've got some fun ones coming up. So make sure you're on board with that. Okay. This week, Disney has released, and as part of their 100th anniversary, they're releasing 4 sets of restored classic Disney cartoons. This week we're talking about the series that came out 1st of July and the one that came out 1st of August. A lot of them featured the Fab 5 characters ish, Fab 3, Fab 4, the Fab 4, because Daisy or Pluto both weren't part of it, depending on who you count as the 5th of the Fab 5.
Right.
And as Pete says, the earliest one that they released on this set was the skeleton dance, but we already reviewed that last October for our Halloween show, so we're not going to talk about that here. But spoiler alert, we all liked it. It's a good cartoon. Go watch it. Okay. Pete, I'm going to start with you. They started with 3, going in order, kind of. They started with 3 of the original black and white Mickey Mouse cartoons.
Yeah, and I'm glad I get to start with this because I think these of the groupings we have, these as a whole were actually my favorites. The 3 that they had were, and I'm not going to know in year order, but it was Mickey's Steamroller, which was Mickey runs a steamroller. Minnie is watching a couple of Mickey's nephews. The nephews go kind of crazy and they take over the steamroller, which wreaks havoc on the town, and Mickey tries to stop it. The second one is Building a Building, which is Mickey is also, I guess it wasn't a steamroller, it was a shovel. But anyways, it's typical, cartoon building. They're constructing the frame of a
slapstick.
Yeah. And Minnie comes along. She's selling boxed lunches for 15 cents. And Mickey screws over Pete, Peg Leg Pete, a few times. And and he gets mad. And so they kind of fight. And there's a lot of antics, of course. And then the third one, which is Barnyard Olympics, covers there's several events in this Barnyard Olympics, but the main one is a cross-country triathlon, I want to call it, because there's running, there's
horse and
boat, there's boating, there's biking, and there's a cat, but it's not Pete the cat, it's a different cat, and Mickey is racing, and again, antics occur. So so I don't know the order of those 3.
The order of those is actually in the reverse order of what you said.
Okay, so Barnyard Olympics first, then the building, then the steamroller. Okay.
Yes.
But they're all early 30s, I would say. I don't think any of them were from the 20s.
Right.
And I have to say, to me, these were a lot of fun. They were The early Mickey Mouse cartoons were very, what Walt would say, gag centric, right? Lots of sight gags, lots of sound gags. And these three were all that. Of the three, I think I liked building a building the best of the three. But they were all a lot of fun. I hadn't seen any of these before myself, and I really enjoyed them. I don't mind black and white for shorts, and they definitely, these are ones old enough that it was Walt doing the voice of Mickey, though he didn't talk a lot in any of them particularly. But it was back when we had Walt voicing Mickey, and just very, very classic Mickey Mouse. What do you think, Steve? Did you enjoy
I
these
did
three?
like them. I enjoy them. What I sort of liked is it's the era where Mickey Mouse is not necessarily the nice, sweet mouse that we see later on. He sort of has an edge to him. I mean, in some of it. That's what I found fascinating, especially when we watched the one documentary showing the evolution of Mickey Mouse and how Mickey Mouse changed over the times. I'd say my favorite out of that one was probably the Olympics one, the first one. That was what was my favorite one. So that's what I would say. I mean, they weren't my favorite out of the bunch that we watched. I definitely have my go-to character, but they were very enjoyable. Derek, what would you say?
Yeah, I enjoyed them. I would say I would agree with you, Steve, that I like the Olympics one best. Now, that's partially coming from me as a former track athlete, so I do appreciate that humor. What
I picture you as the wiener dog there, Derek.
Huh?
I picture you as the wiener dog.
No wiener dog.
Sure.
When you were young.
I haven't been that skinny since like ever. So, but what I really noticed is they couldn't have Pete be the bad guy, because how's Pete going to be in a running race? I mean, realistically. But there were definitely some gags on there especially of those three, that you wouldn't put in shorts today necessarily. Just some of the I don't want to call it abuse, but some of the rough gags, hitting people with the bricks and throwing bricks at everybody and all that kind of stuff would probably not be in a lot of cartoons today. What I really noticed watching these is I would love to go back and see how the originals looked and how much they basically it looked like on some of them they essentially redrew the lines, especially on like Mickey's head, were so clean and so starkly colored compared to some of the backgrounds and such. I really noticed it on Building a Building and Steamroller, that it looked like they had super sharpened Mickey. And I would be interested to see the process that they used on those, whether they actually did have to go back and retrace a lot of that, or if they could just do it in computers, or how they did it. I would love to see a documentary on how they have restored all of these different cartoons.
Yeah.
The other part that was interesting to me, just from a technical aspect, was the use of some of the sepia tones. And how accurate is that to how when they were originally shown? Because especially on, I think it was on Building the Building, I really noticed there was a lot of that sepia tan, different shades, and whether they would have used that on the original prints or whether it would have been more of a grayscale. So from a technical aspect, that's what I really noticed on these. Yes, it was great to hear Mickey had the traditional lines, the "oh boy" and all those kind of lines that I would almost be willing to bet they reused some of those audio clips again and again and again and again. I'm not sure he actually would have re-recorded them for every cartoon. I also noticed that they used a lot of public domain music.
Yeah, of course.
I mean, using Stars and Stripes Forever in I think it was the Olympics one, where they had the marching band going back and forth, and how they did it. And they did it in Skeleton Dance, the repeat of some of the animation, how it would go one way, and then you could tell they literally flipped it on the
looped it
camera
back.
to go back. So just some of the technical stuff is what I really noticed about the old black and white stuff.
So you're talking about some of the stuff that like you wouldn't expect today. The biggest thing that hit me was in Building a Building. There was a scene when Mickey was rescuing Minnie from Pete, and Pete gets Mickey on the ground and he's pounding Mickey in the face. And I'm like, that's kind of rough.
But I will say, it is not nearly as rough as some of the new Mickey Mouses that they came out with.
Well, this is true.
This
is true.
This is the stamp Mickey, and this is the, how does that connect to some of the current Mickey? Well, I guess they're not current anymore because they've ended the series. The Wonderful World of Mickey Mouse, the new look.
Right.
Mickey.
Yeah, I'm surprised that they ended that already.
I'm not. It was terrible. But they're also
it's another discussion.
It's also what they used for Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway. So, yeah, that'll be interesting to see how that ends up. Okay. The next set of videos was featured Figaro the cat as Minnie Mouse's cat. The first one was bath day. I think it is bath day, where literally she starts with her trying to give Figaro a bath, and then him going out and getting teased by a bunch of cats because he has a bow around his neck, which that didn't hold up that well. Just as far as, teasing him for looking so girly because he has the bow around his neck.
Right.
That did not hold up well. No. But then it's all about him getting dirty and having to have another bath and the cycle repeating. But to me, the beginning of this one, where it was him hissing at her and swiping at her and not wanting to get in the bathtub, that were some of the best sight gags that we saw out of any of these. Just because being able to do all that stuff without any words is almost you can see why these late 40s ones, mid to late 40s cartoons were some of the apex of the Disney short animation. So, then the other one was Sylvester and Figaro and Frankie. It was a Sylvester and Tweety that wasn't nearly as funny, and it was a Tom and Jerry that wasn't nearly as funny.
Yeah.
So he's after this bird because it won't stop singing because he wants to take a nap, which I can totally relate to. Anyone who has kids can totally relate to that.
Or birds.
And then it's him going after the bird and Minnie getting on him for going after the bird, and then the dog that wasn't Spike the dog comes in, and eventually he and the bird make up because he saves the bird, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I said, to me, it was the sight gags in these of being able to do all the stuff without it. Really harkened back to the old silent movies of having to do all this stuff without having all the dialogue. So to me, these two really worked. Pete?
I would agree they worked okay. Totally agree with your assessment that I very much grew up on Warner Brother Looney Tunes and Frankie and Figaro. Again, I hadn't seen either of these two, at least in a long, long time. I didn't remember Frankie and Figaro at all. That to me, it was like cheap knockoff Tweety and Sylvester, and it didn't really work for me. I didn't think it was particularly funny. The bath time one was much better. There was enough gags in there that hit well that I thought, and the animation was pretty good quality for the most part too. So of the two, I did enjoy bath time more. The other one, it just pale. It was, it's comparison. It wasn't that it was bad, but it just didn't work like Tweety and Sylvester ever did. So,
and I will say,
what about you?
I will say interesting. By this point, you're into the more modern Minnie Mouse.
Yes, right.
Because obviously these were put out in 46 and 47. So you are post World War II Mickey, who is the suburbanite, much more a human with a mouse head, much more round features. So It is the more modern look to Minnie.
And Minnie could be anybody in these shorts. She does. I mean, she has lines, but she's not doing anything that makes you think Minnie. She's just
she's not as funny as the
cat
grandma in the Sylvester and Tweety.
Right. Yeah. So
I agree with both of you. And when I saw it, I went, "Oh, Sylvester and Tweety," which is so much better. I did find it fascinating that Figaro is voiced by Clarence Nash, who also does Donald Duck. There's one quick little moment, and I went, "That's Donald Duck." So I had to do a quick Google search to make sure I was hearing correctly. I did. I think Bath Time was better than Figaro and whatever. What was the bird's name?
Frankie.
Frankie. Yes. So.
Did anyone else think that Frankie looked like remember at the beginning of Mrs. Doubtfire when he's doing the voiceover for the bird?
Yes, now that you say that.
Looked like Frankie from this.
I don't remember it well enough, so.
Okay.
Yes,
I'll believe you.
Okay. The next set of cartoons is Donald Duck. As you can tell, Donald holds a special place in Steve and I's heart. Steve, what did we have for the Donald Duck cartoons?
So I'm going to go in the order from least, the one I liked least, up to the one that I liked the most. Starting off with Flying Jalopy. Interesting facts first is this was directed by Dick Lundy, and it was his last Disney cartoon before he moved over to doing Woody Woodpecker cartoons. So interesting fact, if you look at Ben the Buzzard and then go look at Woody Woodpecker cartoons, there was Buzz the Buzzard, and they look very similar. This one was okay. As looking, I read some comments of Ben the Buzzard is not a very nice. He's pure evil. He wants to kill Donald. I just think Donald does better when he's sort of matched equally and he gets frustrated, which we'll talk about later. It was okay. Again, there were some really good sight gags with this. I mean, not a lot of words had to be said. So I'd say that. Moving on, then Cousin Gus. So if you follow, it's no correct. The creator of there trying to expand sort of the Duckverse, because there's also the Donald Duck comic books. This one was good. I get a lot of good, funny sight gags with Gus, who eats everything in sight, even though he doesn't eat much. And Donald increasingly getting frustrated. Interesting fact I learned about this one: it is the first program to be reshown on television. So it had been shown in the theaters, and a week later, it was shown on television. So it was the first reshown program in the U.S. And it was fascinating. But my favorite is Donald's nephews, and I think that's where Donald does really well when he's paired with his nephews. Interesting that Clarence Nash actually does all the voices in this one, so he does both the nephews in that. Just how Donald increasingly gets frustrated and sort of that battle of wits between them. Again, lots of great sight gags. Going to sort of the hot volcano mustard. And really, like you said before, not a lot of dialogue happening in thing. It's all a lot of sight gags. Him reading and trying to figure out what to try next, and not succeeding. And then reason why I love Donald is his personality. I think there's a bigger personality in his frustrations and stuff. So. And it was the first appearance of the nephews. So they went on to many more shorts, but the first time we saw his nephews. And then, of course, the other fact I really like, it's usually a trivia I ask people, is we learned that Donald Duck has a sister, actually a twin sister, named Dumbella.
Yes.
Didn't they later change that name, though?
There's a couple of different names, that she goes by.
But originally it was Dumbella. Yes.
Right. It's a terrible name.
It is a terrible name.
Who would name your child that?
But I think she thinks the nephews are such angels, and she's Dumbella, and the sister who thinks the aunt who thinks that Gus doesn't eat much is another one of those, like, obviously she's not very smart type names.
Right.
So I would kind of agree with you, Steve, as far as the order of these, especially the lowest one for me was the Flying Jalopy. I will say I did watch this with my wife, who is a pilot. She enjoyed Flying Jalopy just because, again, some of the airplane sight gags. But I kept thinking back to, honestly, it was Plane Crazy, where a lot of the gags, and then also a lot of the gags had already been done, or were done again. I think it was probably were done, or right around the same time was Goofy's How to Fly. Did a lot of the same gags, the wings coming off, the turning on its side, etc. So, the Cousin Gus one, I love because of its obvious reference to Harpo Marx, down to the fact that he communicates by honking. And I mean, they do the eating everything in sight, and doing all the different stunt gags essentially while still being mute, as Harpo Marx did. I just got a huge Harpo Marx feel with Cousin Gus. The cousins, I think of all of the ones with he and his cousins, I think this is probably my least favorite, and the nephews is probably my least favorite. I will say I got a feeling as a teacher, when he's reading the book on what to try with the kids, reminds me of all those how to teach books that never work, or parenting books that never work. And I will say, I think Donald works best as the antagonist, which is, I think, why another reason why Flying Jalopy doesn't work is in that he's the good guy, and it doesn't work. He's the one you're rooting for in that one. Gus was kind of middle of the road, but in reality, it's fun to watch him. The fun part about Donald is to watch him lose his temper.
Right.
That's why these are the nephew ones are so great. That's why the Chip and Dale ones are so great. So great. But I mean, these worked. Two of them I knew from before, the Cousin Gus and the Donald's Nephews.
Yeah.
Neither one of them are in my top 10 probably Donald Duck cartoons of all time. But it was nice to see him represented. I know in the later series, we do get he and Chip and Dale in there. So that is coming up. But for the most part, these work didn't have anything that was really a but yeah, for the most part, they worked. Pete?
Yeah, I would probably put them in the same order as you guys. I totally agree that like the Flying Jalopy was like why is Donald this like innocent rube? This is not Donald. So I thought that was a little bit odd. And and again, the protagonist or the antagonist trying to basically kill him was a little bit much.
Yeah.
I didn't really care for the Gus one that much either. I thought it was a little bit one note. Of the three, I definitely liked the nephews one, even though I what you just said there at the end is totally what I agree with. I like Donald best when he's not going too far in being a jerk, but like he's the jerk, right?
Yeah.
He's a little bit of a jerk, and then he gets his comeuppance, and not as much with this nephews one. The nephews right from the start were being the jerks, and he was just trying to keep them under control. It still worked. It was funny. And I definitely think being the first time that Huey, Louie, and Dewey and Louie show up makes it worthy of putting out in this collection.
Definitely,
for sure. So yeah, I agree. Of the three, that one's the closest to what I think of as, oh, this is classic Donald. So yeah, totally.
I will say probably my favorite Donald and the Nephews has got to be Donald's Snow Fight.
I was going to say that there.
Great one.
Yeah. But again, Donald's the bad guy in that one. Donald's the jerk in that one. So
yeah, well, like the Halloween one, we watch the Halloween one with the nephews last time, and they're just trying to trick or treat at first, and then he's being a jerk, and then he gets his, in the end they do beat him up or whatever, but at least he's they're starting out as being well behaved, and then they become bad because he's bad. So yeah,
Right.
totally agree.
Okay. Last group of cartoons we had on here were Goofy cartoons. They were 3 I would call classic Goofies just because they're ones that you've seen a lot to me. We had Goofy and Wilbur, which is where he goes fishing with the grasshopper from Grasshopper and the Ants. But it's the grasshopper that's his pet grasshopper. He cherishes him, etc. You've got Goofy in Goofy's Gymnastics, which was from 1949, which was pretty much one of the last how-to Goofy cartoons. Because the peak how-to Goofy cartoons came out during World War II. They were 42, 43, 44, which is where, the basketball, the football, all of those came out, the skiing ones. Then you also had Goofy's Aquamania, which actually came out in 1961, which is by far the latest of any of these. And it was one where there was a little bit of a Goofy renaissance going on about then, because you had him in that. You had him then in a couple of the different freeway automotive ones, where they then turned those into programs for, probably by that point, Wonderful World of Color on NBC, being in the 60s. So I would say of these, none of them are my favorite Goofies at all. For the record, Walt Disney could not stand Goofy because he saw them as a step backwards, because they were all they were all just nothing but a line of gags, and there was no story to them. There was no any kind of development throughout the thing. It was just, and think about the how-to ones were literally nothing but a series of how can Goofy screw up next.
Right. Yeah.
So, and I will say of the 3 of these, the one that probably worked best as a story was Goofy and Wilbur, just because it went through the day of fishing with him and how he cared about Wilbur. You saw some of the early gags as far as like Goofy running along with the stork, the big windmill feet and all that kind of stuff. That was some of the early physical gags that Goofy did. Because again, he had not done all of his how-to cartoons. I missed in the Goofy Gymnastic, I missed the famous Goofy narrator voice that was in all the Goofy how-tos that you would think should be in this one. Because this was a Goofy this was how to do gymnastics, essentially.
Right. But it was a record player instead of the voiceover. Yeah.
So, and then the Aquamania one, I don't know if you guys have ever watched some of the Warner Brothers cartoons, the Looney Tunes from like the 70s and 80s, that they don't quite look right. They don't quite feel right. They don't quite sound right. That was Aquamania for me. It's Goofy looked a little weird. Interesting fact, the guy who voiced Goofy's son, who was not Max, was Kevin Corcoran, who was Francis in Swiss Family Robinson. He was the little kid in Swiss Family Robinson. He was the little kid in Old Yeller. It's uncredited, but he is the one that voiced Goofy's dad for that cartoon. Goofy's son for that cartoon. So overall, I like, as general, Goofy ones are ones you don't typically have to think too much about. If I'm choosing 3 Goofies to pick for it, I might choose Goofy and Wilbur because that's a good early one. The other 2 are not ones I pick. Okay, Pete, what were your thoughts?
I agree. I found the Aquamaniacs. So there was a certain point, and I think it started with 101 Dalmatians, where they changed their animation style so that you get a lot more dark lines.
Right.
And they were able to use like photocopy. It wasn't photocopies, but they were able to they found a way to make animation cheaper.
And this came out the same year as 101 Dalmatians. So
Right. And it clearly used that same animation style as 101 Dalmatians and Aristocats and basically everything going forward from 101 Dalmatians. And it's fine for those movies, but I think I totally agree with you. It feels wrong for this because it doesn't match the classic ones. I thought the gags here that one felt kind of tired. I agree. To me, that was the weakest of the two. I enjoyed the other two fine. I liked the one with Wilbur, and that it wasn't just Goofy falls down over and over again. But the gymnastics one is also that one of the three to me is the classic of the bunch that I remember. I think I even had was the Viewmaster. Remember the Viewmaster? I think I had that one on the Viewmaster. So yeah, I liked the Goofy and Wilbur and the gymnastics one quite a bit. The other one, What about you, Steve?
I agree. My favorite growing up was the How to Goofies. One reason why I love Goofy Sky School in California Adventure sort of follows that same thing, How to Fly. Great ride right away. I think totally underrated.
So did the original Barnstormer.
Yes. I agree with you, Derek. I think the one best over story is Goofy and Wilbur. Has a great over story. The How to, not really a story. It's just Goofy having one mishap after another. And then the last one, I think, agree. I think it's such a change in animation after watching the other two. But I find it fascinating as the time period goes on, how they change the animation sort of try to fit the current vibe of what was going on in the world. Yes. But Goofy would be my second top character, way below Donald Duck, though.
I would agree with that. Yeah. Especially if you get some of the World War II Goofies, the how-to Goofies,
Generally, I like Goofy's below Mickey to me. I'm not as big a Donald Duck fan as the two of you, but I do agree, like the very top tier Disney cartoons are the best Donald Duck ones.
Yes.
And with the ones with Chip and Dale, with Spike, and I mean a bunch of other ones too. But I always like Goofy best when he's with Mickey or Donald and not just on his own. So again, some of the how-to ones, they are classics for sure, but I have a lower tolerance for a lot of Goofy.
Yeah, and you can't watch a ton of Goofy in a row,
right?
Because they all get to look to be the same.
They're all
yeah. What was interesting to me was with the Figaro ones. Did you notice he had the Figaro theme song in both of them? The Donald ones were early enough because there's the Donald Duck theme song. Who gets stuck with all the bad luck? No one, but Donald Duck.
Yep. Yeah, we didn't get that once
because that started in 1947.
Okay.
And all of these were actually pre or early World War II. And you could tell kind of that the Jalopy one was 1943. It was right in the middle of war production because the animation didn't look as good.
Yeah.
So we are not going to give these Pixie Dust ratings just because they are all so different. But I loved seeing the variety of animation, especially because for the most part, I watched them kind of in order of when they came out and just watching the different animation styles as it goes forward. As we get into our second set, we're going to do the second set probably in mid to late October. That's going to have an early Oswald. That's going to have the first Alice cartoon. So, and we'll really be able to see there to the Donald and Chip and Dale is going to be the latest coming out of that set. The Donald and Chip and Dale that's coming out of that is Chips Ahoy came out in 1956. So it will go from 1927 to 1956 on that. So it will definitely be a case of being able to truly see the whole gamut of it. We're going to have a couple silly symphonies in that next set. There's going to be just lots of different. It's a bigger variety in that second set.
Yeah.
So, hey.
I look forward to these though, because I
Oh, yeah.
really enjoy going back and looking at the old cartoons, and I kind of wish they would do like a group of these every year. I mean, I know they're supposedly doing this for the 100th, and it's great that they are, but I kind of wish they would, you know, maybe every 3 months just say, okay, we're gonna release, you know, 6 to 8 premieres or whatever you want to call it. They don't even have to
whatever.
They don't even have to refurbish them. I don't even care, but you know, give me some old classics.
Yeah. I will say a lot of the old classic Donalds and a lot of the old classic Goofies are already on the service. They are on there.
Yeah.
So
but they could even re-release them. I'm just saying, like, put them out and feature them.
Yeah.
And because a lot of them are hard to, I mean, you got to dig down to get to these a lot of times, I find. And I really wish they would make it so you had and maybe I'm just missing it, but there should be a place on the page that you can just go to and say, okay, I want classic Disney shorts. And they're just all there. And there isn't that I'm aware of. You got to,
not that's easily found.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. The easiest way to find is find one and then look at
or search a character.
Yeah.
And then you can go in. So I don't know, if you search Goofy, you will get all the Goofy cartoons that are on there. You search Donald, you will find all the Donald cartoons that are on there. And you can just go through, and I wish there was a way, because when you're done watching one cartoon, it will recommend like 8 others.
Right.
I wish there was a way that if you're watching Donald Duck cartoons, it would go ahead and list all the Donald Duck cartoons.
That would be nice.
As the suggested, rather than just a selection, because it's the same selection over and over and over and over again.
Right.
And you can't get to some of the more obscure stuff.
Yep.
So, okay. Gonna bring in our producer, Gina. Because
hey guys,
it is Star Wars time.
Yay! But real quick, I do want to say that Disneyland for the 60th did Wednesdays with Walt, and I got to see a lot of these in the Opera House.
Oh,
so
nice.
So I was, as you're talking, I'm like, I've seen that before. And they also did like these old movies, like these they're like Cupid dolls, and they were water babies. It was a whole other set of cartoons that Walt had done. So anyway, oh, I've seen these before. Anyway. Let's talk Rebels.
Let's talk Star Wars Rebels. We watched season 3, episode 1, which was the introduction of Grand Admiral Thrawn, the blue dude who's going to be our main bad guy in Ahsoka. Or at least we're assuming he's the main bad guy in Ahsoka, because he's the villain that's been featured.
And we saw him.
And season 4, episode 10, which, Steve, I know you've been going through these, but spoiler alert.
No.
Yeah. The Jedi dies.
Kanan
dies and sacrifices himself for the rest of the group. Now, my biggest issue with that, having gone and watched Mandalorian season 3, if Grogu can completely stop Flame, why can't he?
Well, did you watch Bad Batch?
No.
Okay. He's the young Jedi that escapes. So he didn't finish his training.
Neither has Grogu. Grogu had what, 2 weeks, 3
well,
weeks?
Grogu just had to wait
all powerful.
Grogu had to wait for the fire to die down. So he just had to protect his little sphere.
Yes.
Kanan was trying to both stop the flame and propel them off. And it was a big explosion too. I mean, it blew up the whole
thing blew up. Yeah.
So
okay.
But Kanan is Caleb Dune, just so you guys know. Get that.
Yeah, he's in if you watch the first episode of Bad Batch, he's the little kid in the first episode of Bad Batch. That escapes.
Yeah.
Okay.
He's the one Jedi that escapes.
Yeah, that Hunter, I think, saves.
Hunter saved him. Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, what's going to be really good with Ahsoka is that we have Hera, who was the one that was held captive and who they were trying to save.
Right, yeah.
She'll be with Ahsoka. We have Sabine, we have Ezra. So we knew Kanan didn't make it because he's not in the
trailers at all.
Trailer. But he could have shown up.
He could have. Well, it's Freddie Prinze Jr. voiced, so I don't know that they could get such a big name to reprise
Rosario
his role.
Dawson. So
Yeah, they got kind of, and
kind of big names.
the girl that's playing Hera is Mary Elizabeth Winstead, who's not
Yes.
nobody.
Right.
But yeah, I think again, these two episodes, it's a good introduction of Admiral Thrawn. Again, I think I said this in previous weeks. He's, to me, a very interesting Star Wars villain in that he's the intellectual, which is the opposite of almost every other Star Wars villain, which is just kind of brute force. So it makes for an interesting character. If you end up deciding to watch all of Rebels, and again, Gene and I would both recommend it to anybody of the animated shows, this is by far the best. You see the Rebels be defeated by Thrawn because he outsmarts them. The episode right before this one we watched, season 4, episode 10, the Rebels have been back on Lothal where they started, and they plan an attack from an attack on the blockade or whatever, and basically Admiral Thrawn outsmarts them. They destroy the whole attack force, and Hera crashes and she gets captured, and so that's where the episode 10 picks up, is them trying to rescue Hera. They succeed, but in the process, again, Kanan is killed. In the end, this show is really, in my view, it's really Ezra and then maybe Sabine's story. They're the two characters that have the biggest arc throughout this series. We're looking at it from the Ahsoka standpoint because we're preparing for the show, but those are really the characters that this show is about and that grow throughout the series. And so I think killing Kanan is about,
Ezra has to grow as a Jedi.
Right.
And what I think, so when we finish, I'm not gonna spoil the rest of Rebels for you, but when you see the ending of Rebels, you'll know why Ahsoka starts where it starts. I think that's gonna be that's the thing. It's Ezra's story continuing through Ahsoka. And that's my opinion. So we just gotta get to the end so you can see what happens.
Yeah, and I'm hoping, based on what I've seen in Rebels, because I'm assuming in these last couple episodes we will see Ahsoka again near the end. Okay,
absolutely.
Because the last time we saw her was her walking out of the temple away from Darth Vader.
Yes.
That Ezra and the rest of the crew doesn't know she's still alive, but we as an audience do know she's still alive.
Yes.
I'm hoping. I understand why they had to call it Ahsoka, because A, it's the Rosario Dawson character, and B, they had to name it. They've lately named it after one of the main characters. But they're going to need to make up their minds. Either it's going to truly need to follow her or the entire group. And if it follows the entire group, I'm not sure I would have named it Ahsoka. But I'm hoping there's enough, with the fact that we've seen the trailer, that the main idea of it is to go find Ezra again, because I'm assuming he's still being tempted by the dark side and training with the Emperor, et cetera, or whatever.
So we really shouldn't talk about this until you watch the last episode.
Yes.
Because
Okay.
the last
that's fair.
The last episode is
the last
where
two
Ahsoka
episodes.
is.
Yeah. This is me personally. I would recommend, if people have watched episode 10 here, season 4, we're going to suggest, I believe, to watch 13 and then 15. It's either 15 or 15 and 16. It's
both 15 and 16. You have to watch both.
Yeah, we have to watch both, but I don't think they call it. I think 15 is just a 45-minute episode on Disney Plus.
Is it? Okay.
I think so. I don't think they actually call it, but I could be wrong. But anyways, those
Watch
three, I would actually suggest
the whole
go
end.
forward from episode 10 and watch 11 through the end,
the whole end
if you have the time.
It is an arc.
Because everything left from here forward is one single story. You don't need 11 and 12 that much. but 13 is going to drop you in the middle of the story, and then skipping 14 you'll miss a little bit. But I think what we've recommended, which is 13, 15, and 16, will get you the gist of it and will set you up. I don't know if you've done this, Gina. When you watch the end of the last episode, watch the Ahsoka trailer right after it, and you're like, oh my God.
I'll do it again. Because when I watched the Ahsoka trailer for the first time, I'm like, this is Rebels. So it's gonna be this is Rebels. Good.
Yeah.
So
You'll really get what the story, as I said, we'll talk about it next week when we finish it.
Yeah.
About what we think Ahsoka is going to be about, because I think it becomes clearer when you know the ending of Rebels.
And Pete, you are correct on Disney Plus. It is just 15 is a 46-minute episode.
Great.
So
it's perfect. It goes fast. You won't even feel it. It doesn't feel like it at all. It goes so fast. No, Rebels goes fast for me. It feels like
compared to what?
Clone Wars.
Actually, I'm gonna agree with Gina. I think why I'm liking it is they're quick, fast episodes.
They're fast.
Where I could watch 2 or 3, follow the story, and then I could quickly pick up. I tried watching Clone Wars. I did not get farther than 2 episodes. I'm loving this, watching them in order. So
awesome.
Yeah.
I'm so excited.
Okay. Awesome. All right. We do have a little bit of Disney Plus news, so it's time for the Disney Plus news.
Wait.
Go ahead. Sorry.
So Steve commented he's enjoying Rebels. Derek, are you enjoying it, or are you finding it a chore that you have to go through this?
Both, to be perfectly honest.
Is it too?
It depends on the episodes. Some of the earlier episodes
are too kiddish.
No, I like the kid episodes.
Okay.
I like being able to go in. It's 20 minutes. I watch it. I get the whole, because the early ones where I watch 20 minutes, I get the whole story. I can move on. As it gets later, it's getting into more of the serialized, which I'm not as big of a fan of. Because you know me, and this is why I don't like Marvel. If you miss 4 episodes, if I miss 2 movies over here, I'm not going to have an idea what's going on in 10 movies over here.
True.
So, and I will say that's one reason So this week's Rebels episodes were a little bit of a slog for me, to be perfectly honest. Just because I know it's the ones we picked threw us into the middle of story arcs.
Yeah.
Right.
But I also didn't want to have to take the time to watch 3 seasons worth of show.
Sure. I get it. Yeah.
No, and again, we were trying to condense it as much as possible. Right. And as I said, I agreed with, and you and Gina worked this out, and for the most part, I argued a few, but I agree we got to keep it brief. As I said, if you're enjoying this, I still would really say go 11 through 16. I mean, I realize it's 6 episodes. It's going to take 2 hours, but it's really going to give you it's going to be much clearer what's going on, what the overall plan is, as opposed to boop and boop.
And then one more thing, I just saw the rating for Ahsoka, and it's 14. It's 14M or whatever. It's not your Star Wars for kids. So they rated it high. They rated it 14.
Okay. Yeah, which is in line though with Obi-Wan. It's in line with Mandalorian. It's in line with all the others are 14.
I'm just saying Rebels is Y7 and this is M14. So
that's okay.
Yeah. Anyway.
Okay. Now, even though she hasn't done the song in a while, it's time for the Disney Plus news. Which, Kate, I'm calling you out on this one. Do the start, haven't had the song lately. Okay, first news. Another price increase is coming to Disney Plus. Effective October 12th, the price for commercial-free Disney Plus is rising to $13.99 a month, which makes it double the price it was a year ago. Then Hulu is also getting an increase to $17.99 a month. But if you do the premium bundle for $19.99 a month, you get both Disney Plus and Hulu ad-free. The Disney Plus ad version is not changing price. So there is that. This comes in advance of off the two services combining later in the year, which apparently looking at it will be $19.99 a month. So
that's high.
That is the same price as Netflix Premium. And
Yeah.
for the
Not as
most
good.
part, not as good as quality as Netflix Premium.
Well, what I would say is it's not as good Netflix puts out a lot of new stuff.
Yes.
A lot of original too.
A lot
of
right.
original.
Decent original stuff.
Yeah.
The decent Hulu stuff lately has been Only Murders in the Building and nothing. The only decent original Disney Plus stuff lately has been nothing. So,
well, I mean, yeah, because I mean, Disney.
Okay, hopefully.
It's basically, I mean, the original stuff you go for is the Marvel and the Star Wars, and they're cutting back on that, and the Marvel stuff hasn't been as good quality. Star Wars, we haven't gotten anything since if you don't count Bad Batch, we haven't gotten anything since Obi-Wan, right? Oh no, we had Mandalorian season 3.
Was that and no, Andor
you're right. Andor was in the fall. Yeah.
Andor was before.
Okay,
Andor was before Obi-Wan. I think.
No,
Andor I don't think so.
Andor was
right around. Honestly, the one blurred right into the other. To be perfectly honest, they did. So
yeah,
Mandalorian season 3 and Boba Fett were not good.
No.
So, okay, the second thing we have going is Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny being released to streaming retailers on August 29th. If it follows the recent release schedules, it will put it on Disney Plus at the end of September or mid-October. My prediction is the Plus prediction is October 12th. That would put it the same date as the price increase. Would put it what is probably 2 weeks after Elemental, which will probably be September 27th, and it will put it a week after the Loki premiere and Ahsoka finale, which is October 4th ish.
Do you think? Because I mean, they always do a Disney Plus day. At first, they did it on the same date, but they've moved it around. Do you think we're going to see Disney Plus Day be Ahsoka finale, Loki premiere,
and Indy,
and maybe even Elemental all at the same time? I mean, because they usually try to do a push for that.
Would give them a week before they raise the prices.
Yeah.
So that would make sense. Would make our job a little bit harder, but would make sense as far as I think Elemental is going to come out on the 27th because the DVD comes out the 26th.
Oh yeah, it'll be.
And that's the same release. That's the same way they've done Little Mermaid. That's the same day they've done Guardians. Is DVD comes out Tuesday. It's released on Disney Plus on Wednesday.
Good.
So, which to me makes no sense in a business model. Makes zero sense. I understand. Yes, bring it out a month before because anyone who's going to buy it or rent it for that month that's when you're going to get your stuff. But then give it at least a week to be on DVD and Blu-ray.
For the people not streaming.
People will actually might go buy it because otherwise, why would you buy this stuff? With phones having 126 gig of memory these days, iPads and computers having terabytes of memory, these movies being 3 and 4 gig of memory at all, why would you ever buy a DVD or Blu-ray? I mean,
I'll be honest. I don't know why you would buy them at all anymore. I mean, unless it's a movie that you love so much, you're going to watch it over and over and over again.
You can stream it.
Well, except now, prime example is Top Gun Maverick. We bought it because we didn't want to pay for Paramount. Yeah. We just wanted Top Gun Maverick, so we bought it digitally so we could have it anywhere.
Still digital. You did not buy the DVD.
Digital.
Do you realize how hard it is to find a DVD or Blu-ray player these days?
Yeah.
I don't.
Best Buy does not carry them in the. Well, might carry one model in the store. The only place you can find them is Amazon these days.
Yeah.
So yeah, maybe it's for those old school people like me who had all the VHSs.
No. You could drop one word there. It's not old school. It's old people.
No, but remember when like all the VHS, I had the whole Disney VHS like catalog. So maybe it's those kind of people who are like, I
but
want to
see,
have a catalog.
Yeah, I would argue that there's still a place for owning movies, not just because you don't have the service that has it on it, but like I don't know where this movie is going to be in 3 years. I mean, we can all presume we can assume that Disney Plus will have
That's a good point.
Guardians 3 forever, but we don't know that, you know. So
if Amazon would ever go belly up, all the digital movies you downloaded from them, if you look at their rental agreement, you do not own those in perpetuity.
Unless you bought.
It's essentially a super long-term rental.
Right.
So there is something to be said for actually owning a copy of it if you look at it that direction.
Well, to get our Princess Bride 20 different ways.
That's
the one movie I have. That's the only movie I have like 20 different ways. I have the Buttercup edition. I have the 50th edition, whatever. I have all the.
So, okay. Next week, we are diving back into the vault again, which is nice. We are going to be doing Sword in the Stone, the classic tale of Arthur and Merlin and Archimedes and Wart and the whole crew.
And Madame Mim.
Yes.
One of the best Disney villainesses.
She's great.
So we're going to be doing Sword in the Stone, which has been requested by Kate multiple times, and I have been assured that she will be here for this.
Yay.
We're also going to be doing Rebels season 4, episodes 13 and 15, 16, or 15, however you need to look at it. On Disney Plus, it's only 15, but it's a long episode, which are the episodes that are going to lead directly into the following week, which is Ahsoka.
Yay.
Also want to give our audience a preview of what's coming up in about a month, so you have time to watch this. Mid to late September, we are going to be looking at the original series Zorro, the first Disney original TV series that was not Mickey Mouse Club or Disneyland. It was the first scripted, serialized Disney series. Going to give you guys about a month notice because we're going to be looking at what are essentially the first 13 episodes of season 1. It's the first story arc because it was 2 seasons of approximately 39 episodes each. They only did seasons of it. And yet it is so iconic that it has introduced a couple fairly bad Antonio Banderas movies. And
I like the first one.
The first one wasn't bad. The second one was bad.
The second one was bad, yes.
So that is coming up, but we want to give you guys, because they are about 25, 27 minutes a piece to watch it. I would argue with one of the best Disney theme songs ever. But that gives you time because we're going to be looking at those for, it said in about a month is when we will be looking at those. We do have a couple openings coming up the next few weeks. If you have any suggestions, please email us at plusplatoon@gmail.com. I need suggestions because we've got ideas. We've got all sorts of ideas, but we want to know what you want us to watch. Okay. That way, and if you want us to watch something and you want to be on the show, we would love to have you. Okay. We have new episodes coming out Thursdays on YouTube and all the major podcasting services for Gina, Pete, and Steve, Kate, and Absentia. We are the Plus Platoon, and we will see you guys all next week. Bye, guys.
Howdy, howdy, howdy.
Thanks for watching this week's episode of the Plus Platoon. Be sure to subscribe to the Plus Platoon podcast to keep getting great content each week. Then head over to Apple Podcast and leave those 5-star reviews as they help make the Plus Platoon visible to even more Disney Plus fans. Also, go to YouTube and like and subscribe to the Plus Platoon channel, where you can watch all future episodes live. If you have a question for the Plus Platoon, please send us an email to plusplatoon@gmail.com or connect with us on Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram @PlusPlatoon.
The Plus Platoon is a Disney Plus fan podcast and is not affiliated with the Walt Disney Company or the Disney Plus streaming service. All opinions expressed on the show are solely those of the individual hosts and in no way reflect the views of the Walt Disney Company.
Thanks for watching, and be sure to stay tuned for next week's episode because the Plus Platoon is to be continued.